Welcome back to Mornings with the Mandalorian, the show where we talk about our first reaction, filmmaking techniques, and connections to the greater Star Wars universe within the Emmy Award-winning show, The Mandalorian, now streaming on Disney+. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, here with my co-host, as always, Christian Miller.
Hey, what's up?
And before we get into this episode, just a quick bit of news for everyone. I know we said that after Mandalorian wrapped up until the new year, we were going to do 2 banter episodes. Just Chris and I talking before and after the podcast records. We're changing that because if you guys have been paying attention to anything on social media, there's been a lot of news surrounding Lucasfilm and Star Wars in general. And just we're going to cover all that in our second Future of Star Wars episode that's going to come out the week after Mandalorian finishes. So be looking forward to that. And then we'll still have an extra long banter episode, probably going to be like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then we'll do that episode as well. And then once New Year starts, we'll do something. We're not really sure yet. We'll figure out over break. But anyway, with this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian, we have a guest with us this week, not in the studio, but over Zoom. We have Avery McGrail, who you guys might remember from a past episode, I
The
think.
Mandalorian Season 2 preview.
Yeah, the Mandalorian Season 2 preview. He's back, ready to talk about this episode. How's it going, Avery?
I'm doing well, fellas. Hope you're doing the same.
Yeah, I think this is the episode that I've personally watched the most, so I think I will have more to talk about when it comes to this episode.
But before we get into that, just debrief us on your opinions on this season and how you've responded to everything that's perspired so far.
Yeah, I really like this season. I think Mandalorian stayed strong through the second arc for the characters. I liked the season season premiere. Timothy Oliphant, I'm a big fan of that guy. So anything he's in, automatically 5 stars. So that was good. I really like the Ahsoka episode. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I really like her character. I really appreciate her development path as a Star Wars character since watching her in the Clone Wars movie from 2008. I really appreciate what Dave Filoni and the rest of the creative team have done with her to make her such an endearing part of the Star Wars lore. I really like this past episode, which we'll talk about a lot. I really like when Star Wars feels grounded, and you got a vehicle on wheels, so that's pretty grounded. But I really thought the characters were grounded. I liked seeing things a little bit more from an Imperial perspective, with everyone like celebrating when they arrived with the shipment of the material, which is not vibranium, but I want to keep calling it vibranium.
Yeah, understandable. It sounds very similar. The first question that we normally discuss, Avery, on here is how exactly we watched it and how that may affect how we viewed that episode. So Christian, would you like to go first? How did you watch this episode as opposed to usual?
I didn't stay up till 3 a.m.
For once.
Yeah, I think there's only been like 1 or 2 times where I didn't stay up all the way. Because I had stuff to do Friday, and then I saved it for the end of the day. See, I was under the impression that we were gonna watch it together through Disney Group Watch, but you fumbled that. You fumbled that plan.
We did watch it together.
Yeah, we did, but you had already seen it, and so we couldn't react together, I guess.
Yeah, I liked seeing your reactions though. I did.
Yeah, so like we did the Group Watch thing on Disney Plus, and FaceTimed while we did it, and that was really fun. Even though I missed some of the lines at first because I think my mom had like come into the room at some point. So I didn't catch every single like sort of Bill Burr line, I think, in the beginning.
Oh, you mean like in the scrapyard?
No, it was I think it was during the chase sequence.
Oh, okay.
But then I was on a hiking trip Sunday. I rewatched the episode. Then I downloaded it to my phone, and I did some like subtitles things to like catch the things I missed. And then this on the way here to this podcast, I just sort of had it on the background as background noise in my car, and I had traffic, so I didn't let it distract me. But I just sort of refreshed my because I didn't have time this week to do notes, so I needed it to like refresh my perspective, I guess, think about certain things to talk about.
Yeah. As Christian said, this is the first week I think I've watched an episode twice before recording the podcast. I've definitely watched episodes more than once, just not prior to recording. And so I watched this one first with my girlfriend as usual. on Friday night. I stayed over at her place Friday night, and then we
No.
watched it. Or was it?
It was Friday night that we watched it.
It was Friday morning that I watched it because I stayed Thursday night. Yeah, that's what it was. So I watched it Friday morning with her, and then Friday night watched it with Christian over the Disney Plus call. And I have not done as much research as I would normally do.
It's to the point in the season where we're sort of used to everything, I guess, and they're not really like they're throwing story curveballs, but not like style or canon curveballs. So we're like we have
Yeah.
to research a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so
And also we're kind of tired at this point.
exactly. I also was really busy binge watching The Boys
Yeah.
with Katie as well.
This happened with our mutual rankings marathon too, where we got to the end of the series and we're just
and we were slacking off so bad. Yeah.
we're exhausted all this podcast prep.
Yeah, and we hope to kind of. I think with every series that we do, we kind of get more rejuvenated when it comes to like the want and the drive to do something. But Avery, how did you watch this episode?
Well, I just watched it yesterday, actually, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. I was home in the Bury, so I
Heck
watched
yeah.
it with John McGrail and the fam. It was a good time.
So you just watched it the once?
Yes, I've just watched it the once.
That's valid. That is a okay thing to do.
I know it's okay. I'm just wondering because it was he said he watched it yesterday. So I didn't know if he watched it before that at all. And like
Yeah.
I don't know.
The trap of a memory. It's all right.
Yeah.
Unlocked.
It's okay. Hey, Avery, you've done well on the 2 podcasts that you've been on for me. I have no doubt that we will do just as fine this time.
Thanks.
Should we do a synopsis of the episode?
I think you should do a synopsis.
I should do that. Do you want to talk about the beginning so I don't miss the beginning like I normally do?
What do you mean?
You know how normally I always forget like the first scene? I don't think I missed it this time. I think I got it.
You got it.
Okay. So it starts off.
But I will be here to correct you.
Okay. It starts off at
No, it does. It doesn't start off, Spencer. It begins.
Okay, it begins at a scrapyard. Yeah, I got that right. First scene. And we see Bill Burr's character, who is now a prisoner of the New Republic, and he is scrapping old TIE fighters and everything, who knows what, when he is basically recruited by Cara Dune to come and join this mission to try to figure out where Moff Gideon is so that everyone can get Baby Grog's back. And so he meets up with everyone else, mistakes Boba Fett for the Mandalorian, and then sees the Mandalorian and kind of gets scared a little bit. He almost chickens out when he figures out they're going to try to find Moff Gideon because he's, for good reason, scared of Moff Gideon. And so he says that he can get the location of the Star Destroyer if he is taken to planet name.
Something with an M.
I knew that. That doesn't help.
Motrin? Motrin?
Motrin is a medicine.
I know.
Anyway, so they go to the planet and there's a bunch of these big old like honkin' juggernaut things that are shipping rhydonium, which is very explosive. And they need to be able to get into this Imperial facility so that they can get the location. So Mayfeld and Mando, they dress up as stormtroopers to get into this place while fighting away some pirates while they're trying to do it. They're trying to blow up the rhydonium. They finally make it into the place. They figure out where they need to go to get the location. Mayfeld finds out that one of the guys there is like an ex-commander of his or whatever. They almost get caught until Mayfeld like shoots his way out and shoots everyone. Mando ends up taking his helmet off in the process. Go character development. And yeah, they make it out with the help of Fennec and Cara Dune, who are sniping some people off the roofs. And then we get everyone's favorite part of the episode, the sonic blast at the end by Boba Fett on 2 innocent TIE fighters. And then they all go away. And yeah.
Innocent.
No, they're not innocent because they're Imperial, but it's whatever.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's how they let Mayfeld go free because according to the Republic, he died. Morag, right? Is that the name of the planet? That's it. I remembered it. He died when it exploded. No, Morag's from something else.
Yeah, Morag is somewhere else in canon, but I mean they do this a lot of times where they connect planets from other
I don't
Serious,
know.
but I don't.
It doesn't
I
really
don't think
matter.
it's Morag.
It's not Morag. It's something I almost want to say Mortis too, but that's
No.
the big forcey planet.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Morag. I saw it yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's what they called it.
All right, Christian will probably look it up while we're talking.
We don't normally go to Wikipedia during the episode, but this is
this is not normally what
frustrating.
happens.
Special case.
Yeah, exactly. And then is it the end of this episode when they send the thing to Moff Gideon where it's like, you have what I want, and he basically just redoes Moff Gideon's speech from the episode 7 from last season?
Yes, he does finish with that. He's got a little taste for the dramatics there.
Yeah, I loved that. That was so cool. I stopped watching when Christian and I were watching and just looked at his face to see his reaction to him giving the same speech that Moff Gideon gave. So yeah, that's it for Synopsis. I think I did better this time than I normally do. But let's go right into the episode. Whenever there's a new character added, Avery. Morak. Morak. Where do I get Morag from? I know that's from something.
I have no idea.
So whenever there's a new character that either comes back or is added, we like to talk about how that character was used in the episode, Avery. So in this
Morag
case,
is from Guardians of the Galaxy.
It is.
Ah,
That's right.
together.
So Avery, we would like to talk about I guess Mayfeld.
Hold on.
In this episode. Okay, Christian.
But there was a character named Morag in the Ewok cartoons.
Oh.
All right.
So
that's what I was remembering it from. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So if we get back on track, we want to talk about Mayfeld in this episode a little bit and give him his own bit of time as he is coming back after we see Mando leaving him in a New Republic prison in The Prisoner from last season. Christian,
yes,
and you actually predicted that he would come back in a way kind of like this, except I thought he was going to be on the Imperial side. We might have both said that.
At some point we had thought that the Empire was going to employ some bounty hunters,
including Finnick and Boba,
and Mayfeld. But we knew he was coming back because it was listed that he was going to be on an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And last week we thought they were going to break him out of a prison, and that was going to be the story of this episode. But he's broken out right away.
It turns out that wasn't very hard to do.
Yeah.
Well, when you have someone who literally works for the New Republic, it's not really that hard.
Yeah.
I guess.
But yeah, it's interesting how from the beginning, you could argue this episode's kind of from his perspective.
Yeah.
And he has just as many like sort of decision making like moments that Din has in this episode.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that like immediately we're given a more sympathetic viewing of him in this episode. He's introduced on this junkyard. And it gives us a different sort of perspective of the New Republic. We haven't seen them really enacting sort of cruelty, I guess. And it's not like they're like torturing him, but it's like this really bleak thing of like using these criminals to like harness like scrap metal is what I'm thinking, but also maybe intel.
Yeah,
they could be harvesting intel from the ships.
It's also exactly what the Empire did with their prisoners. You see it firsthand if you've played Jedi Fallen Order. Cal Kestis originally starts off as a scrapper in a scrapyard, and that's the terrible, and you see the terrible, like the Empire treats them exactly like this. So what makes the New Republic any different from the Empire with how they treat their prisoners, and gives you that other sense. And also whenever you get to see, you almost start to feel okay with the Empire when they first get there and everybody's clapping for them in this episode. And so you get different viewpoints of each side in this episode, which I like.
Yeah. And also I have to note that the stacks of like TIE fighters on that planet, that was a really cool thing that was introduced, or not introduced, but it could have been introduced in The Force Awakens. It was one of those concept pieces. A lot of things were going on when they were making that film, where they were just sort of imagining all like original trilogy sort of images and like sort of putting them in new context.
Yeah.
And we've always talked about on the show how we love how these Star Wars movies and shows, anytime they're coming up with something for a story, they're going to go back to the vault of images that they've constructed for other projects, and they'll see if it can work in a new way. And I really appreciated that decision for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it was I enjoyed it very much. Avery, you said before we recorded that you would like to talk a lot about Mayfeld. And we are now.
Yeah.
What exactly
Well,
about Mayfeld?
I'll ask you that. Like, is it specifically Bill Burr? Do you like are you interested in like the dynamic of his persona in relation to his character? Like, what is it that like hits hard for you?
Yeah, I really liked Bill Burr's performance in the role of Mayfeld. I really liked the way he balanced off of Din, the way he made him question those hard-hitting things about the Mandalorian creed that he supposedly follows, about sacrificing your morals in desperate situations. I thought that was really, really interesting writing by the writing team. And I really thought that Mayfeld brought an interesting dynamic with a more upbeat, more fast-paced style of talking, when it's like usually Cara Dune or Din or Ahsoka or whomever usually talk very intentionally, and just the way he was talking a little more frenetic. I really like that a lot.
He has like no filter.
Yeah, I also think that like that speech that he gives Mando as they're headed to the complex is like one of the things that Mando, whenever he goes to take off his helmet, he's like, he's right. Like, what is it? Like, we all kind of do things whenever he's like, I'm in a desperate situation. I got to do what I got to do. Like he said, you know.
Yeah, he didn't choose what was most valuable to him. And in that moment, he chose the life of Grogu. So
absolutely.
So did you before Bill Burr was in this show, did you enjoy his comedy?
I haven't seen too much, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, I was wondering if it was like, because I don't know, you had mentioned, I think you called him Bill Burr, so I didn't know if it was like a certain like perspective you had on like the performer.
Nope.
Gotcha. Me and Spencer have talked before how we've seen his comedy and don't really like his attitude a lot of times. He seems like just a very bitter kind of guy that like.
He's also like extremely sexist. It seems like
a lot of his comedy punches down, which is something that I really don't like in comedians.
Yeah. I will not discredit though that he is a great actor.
Yeah.
We talked about in the season preview though. I think we talked about Bill Burr's style of comedy and how we didn't like it. So that's striking a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think. And in a lot of ways, Mayfeld is basically that persona. I guess the difference is that he's not a comedian in Star Wars, so he's not a person who's proclaiming a message.
Yeah,
he's a broken person who like he hates himself, so he wants other people to hate him. And so it comes off a different way. And also, I think in this episode, there's the complexity that they added in this episode has him like struggling with his like, I guess his allegiance, his sensitivity, his masculinity, how he's expressing, how he's dealing with his trauma, I guess, how he's dealing with his past, and the way that he wants to cut off certain things of his past. So what did you think about? I don't know. First of all, what did you think about how he reacted to being recruited? And then how did you react to his feelings dealing with Valen Hess, the Imperial officer that he shoots?
Yeah. To him being recruited, I thought it was very logical. He states that he's a survivor and he saw this as an opportunity to survive and to potentially get into a better situation or get a better view, as Cara Dune put it. As for his interaction with the officer, first of all, whose accent I wasn't sure exactly they were going for, but I really liked it. I just wasn't. What accent was that?
I think it might have been like a Texas sheriff, maybe.
I think that's what I was going for, like really deep South, like.
Yeah, but there was still some British, so it was pretty funny to me.
Yeah, it was. Christian and I both were like amazed at the performance by him as well. Like it was really good. Like I was to the point where I was like, Mayfeld, if you don't shoot him, I will. Like,
yeah, I also liked his quote a lot. People think they want freedom, but instead they want order.
Yeah.
Insinuating the first order.
Yeah,
Um,
that was definitely an insinuation there. And like you said, his delivery and the way he just makes you hate a person so much is so good and better than a lot of other like Imperial officers that we see, because they're either like Grand Moff Tarkin level or they're like the guy who gets choked out by Darth Vader who no one's scared of kind of thing. And it's cool to see someone who's like a lower level officer who is still just as like creepy to someone. And
yeah. So I liked Mayfeld's interactions with him a lot because Mayfeld is trained well and knew what to do in the situation, and he knew he had to get out with Din, but his emotions still controlled him a little bit, and seeing that and hearing his old officer, and then having to recount the events that he saw, like thousands of his brethren die.
mhm.
Brethren.
Brethren, yeah. I really liked that he was able to get some sort of vengeance for that and still be able to pave a way for them to get out of there. He played the situation very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when watching it, I feels like a lot of times in this show, there are things where like situations that the characters are put in where like as viewers, we want them to be safe and to beat the bad people. And so any sort of thing that'll get them out is it's what we're going to support in the moment.
Right.
But even if it like sort of compromises their own philosophies, I guess,
Right.
or like leads them down a dark road. And I feel like Bill Burr doing that, or sorry, Mayfeld doing that, like I think it was in the moment like something to applaud, but I'm wondering if that's going to lead to some more like something that's not going to work for Mando in the end.
Hmm.
It's got me wondering that, like, because he's already. It's weird how episode to episode sometimes I shift back and forth on how much I want him to stray from his views.
Mhm.
Because when he's with Mayfeld, it's like, no, hold on to what's making you what makes you special, and don't just like stop caring about your culture because he thinks that there's no good guys, no bad guys, similar to DJ in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the what's it called, the Heiress, that episode with Bo-Katan where she takes
Yeah.
off her helmet and she's like, "Hey, you were raised in a cult. Some of these traditions were meant to keep you in line and were meant to keep you away from much of the actual Mandalorian culture, and were meant to, you know, instill a supremacist sort of violent culture that's not necessarily what Mandalore is."
Mhm.
And so I go back and forth in terms of who, because Mando seems like a blank slate a lot of times in terms of he's not like always voicing his opinion. It's always these characters bouncing off of him.
Mhm.
And so it feels like whoever he's reflecting at the time, it gives me a different feeling who he's like, what they're sort of urging him towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. So speaking of, what do you guys think about Brown Eyes removing his helmet?
That's I love that moment.
I also just love Brown Eyes. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's really funny to me.
A little weird thing we could get out of the way first is that it's facial recognition, but not like facial identification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's making sure you're not a criminal, basically.
Yeah, and he's not on any database for faces because he's a Mando,
Yeah.
a Death Watch
Right.
Mando, so he hasn't shown his face.
But then you also have the problem with this is the officers' mess. So theoretically, the only people that be using this are officers.
yeah.
So why do they not have the officers' faces scanned? Because there's not many of them. Like, they could have scanned all officers' faces and have them in every Imperial database and just like done that. Then you can't get some doofus come in here and just like access your files.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's not worth obsessing over. There's always some little logical thing that like, you could blow up every episode, but it's just a fun thing. What I do like undisputed I like about this is that I'm stealing a little bit of this from analysis I've seen.
Oh, you're good. You do that. We do that every week. We both do.
But there's the graphic that like when it's scanning his face, it looks like a net. It's like a grid that goes on his face. It looks like a net. And I saw someone say that like that's like it's foreshadowing for the next episode that it's like he's being cast in a net and that he doesn't know that he's being trapped or that he will be trapped. Regardless of what that could mean, I just think it's cool. I love these little Star Wars graphics that appear on like all these screens.
Yeah.
And like seeing that like display on his face, it's always cool to see.
Yeah. I really like that he took off his helmet. Like I've been a big thing for like, you're not automatically not a Mandalorian if you just take off your helmet. Like that's not what that means, like he still is going to abide by the code, and like taking off your helmet is like, I feel like it's the smallest little bit of the code if there is like a smaller portion of it.
Quarter portion.
Yeah. And I also like that it's also character development because he's realizing that he has to do what he has to do to get Baby Yoda back, and it ultimately shows how much he truly cares for Baby Yoda. And we've been wanting him, you and I have talked about this, Christian, but we've been wanting him for so long to just admit how much he cares for Baby Yoda, because it's kind of insinuated where he's like, I need that child, he goes where I go, but he's never just outright said that the child means a lot to him, which is why I love the end of this episode, because he just outright goes, it means more to me than
he says he though. I remember in first season, Moff Gideon says, it means more to me than you'll ever know. And the switching of the pronouns makes it more personal. And he's like, this is not just a science experiment. This is my child.
Yep.
You're affecting a person. You're not affecting a little just random thing in nature. Like this is a person and I'm his protector.
Yeah. And out of the whole bit of this episode, that may have been like my favorite sequence, was just that speech he gave to Moff Gideon, because he finally admits how much Grogu means to him, and he says he, because half the time he says it, like even Mando says it like all the time, and he finally says he like once and just says he means more to me than you'll ever know, and it's like, yes, he does.
And I point out that like this is the first scene in the whole show, or at least in this season, where Moff Gideon is there but it's not playing his villainous theme. Every time he showed up, it's been foreboding and like showcasing his tyranny or his viciousness. And this time he's on the receiving end of a threat.
I think it's a false sense of confidence, or a false sense of security, though.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Because as soon as they get on that Star Destroyer, it's going to be like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
for them.
We'll get into speculation later, but I think this is that moment where the hero gets to strike the first blow.
Yeah.
And we'll feel good about that, and we'll feel confident because it's going well. But that once that starts happening, we'll be against the ropes again, and it's not gonna. I personally don't think this season's gonna end well.
I don't either. I don't see it ending well. Avery, did you approve or disapprove of the helmet off?
I approve. For a different reason. Primarily the new guys. I really like that below his helmet, the Mandalorian just looks like a normal dude. There's nothing particularly heroic about him. But I like that throughout the show he's been able to show that he is heroic in nature by his actions. He doesn't just like look like a Han Solo type or a Luke Skywalker type. He's just some scruffy looking nerf herder. It came from tragedy and now is trying to fight his way through the universe and has been able to build this sort of persona for himself despite of his circumstances.
Yeah. It was interesting to see Pedro Pascal's performance without the helmet this time, because it wasn't an emotional scene like it was with IG-11 in season 1, where he's like he's overcome by pain and overcome by this sort of little dispute that he's having with the droid, and like coming to terms, like he's coming to a realization. This time he's doing the same thing he does without a helmet.
Right.
He's just trying to be sneaky and do a job, but he can't fight his way out of it.
Right.
And he's not. First of all, I don't think he really knows how to use facial expressions.
No,
I don't either.
I thought that was
like
interesting.
He's so used to literally masking himself that like he just couldn't react. I I don't know. I thought it was really cool the way Pedro Pascal portrayed him, and that like he's just trying to analyze and figure out something that he's just scared, I guess, because he can't figure out how to do it in this way.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
about to make my senior year English teacher really happy. But it reminds me of what we talked about in class when we read Beowulf and with Grendel, and the
Mhm.
fact that she's in the darkness and no one knows what she looks like. And if you don't know what something looks like, it makes it 10 times scarier. That's why people are afraid of the dark. It's because they don't know what's there, but they're afraid that something is there. But as soon as you see what that thing is, you realize that it's not as scary as you thought it was, because your brain automatically is going to think up the worst. And once you can see it, you realize that in this case, it's just a person. It can be defeated.
Yeah.
It's just a person.
So in this case,
And so what I'm thinking,
in this case, Din doesn't get to have the persona of the monster.
yeah.
Is that what
So
you mean?
he's so used to everyone just being scared of the armor, and
Yeah, because the helmet has its own like reputation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so as soon as he takes it off, it's now, oh, he's just a human. And so like,
And or like he's like an Imperial. They assume that of him, but he doesn't know how to act like that.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's another reason why I think it's so important for him to keep the helmet on, is because that keeps everyone afraid of him. Because if you see that he's just a human, it makes it much less scary. No, he could have been a Gungan, as Mayfeld says, but no, he's just a human.
Is that why you still don't want to show your face?
Yeah. So I think that is ultimately another reason why he is so scared once he takes the helmet off, and why he doesn't want to do it in the first place. It's because he doesn't know how to act like a person. He only knows how to act like the Mandalorian, I guess. And it's definitely two different people.
Okay, guys. So Avery's got to go in a few minutes. So we're just gonna give him his time to close out his statements on this episode, and then do some predictions for next week's finale.
Yeah, like we've been talking about, strong character moments, good stakes, fan moments, the Boba Fett stuff and the Sonic boom, stuff like that. I was really impressed with the direction the episode took. It felt very real world, which is something that's hard to accomplish in Star Wars sometimes. And so I was overall a really big fan of this episode. For finale, I kind of am leaning towards what you guys are saying, and that I think it's going to end with a lot up in the air, a lot hanging in the balance. Kind of like how an Empire Strikes Back ends on a more of a downer ending, because all good trilogies end with things in the middle being at their worst, only for the heroes to triumph in the end. So I was talking to my dad yesterday. I thought that this would be a really good 3-season show. I think
Yeah.
stretch it out too long. I think you want to keep it compact, and you want to keep the characters at their strongest. So I'd agree with you guys in saying that we could be in for a rough time next week. I'm trying to think if I think anything else. I think Grogu's finally going to say brisket. He's finally going to say his first words. And that's about it. I'm just excited to see it. I'm just glad to be along for the ride. So thanks for having me, fellas. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll have to we might get you back next week for the finale, so we can do a full-length episode with you. That'd be pretty fun, I think.
That would be a lot of fun.
But yeah, thank you, Avery, for being on this episode. And good luck for the rest of your day.
Yeah.
All right, so now Avery's gone. Now you're all stuck with just me and Christian for the rest of the episode. We'd like to talk a little bit about Morak now that we know the name of the planet, and kind of how they're doing in the big grand scheme of things with the Empire being on their planet, and what they're trying to do. Christian, I think you probably know and have more to say about this than I do, so I will let you start us.
I really like the way that they have a scene where the Juggernaut goes through the village, and I like the way that they use a shot of this little boy that looks somewhat like baby Din, and his eyes just sort of like peering into Mando's soul, and like giving him another perspective of like there's people all over the galaxy that are just like you, growing up with this situation. But this time he is masquerading as the oppressor. I thought that was cool. Um, and then when we get the pirates, um, it's very interesting. We talked about like perspective twists, I
Yeah.
guess, and like seeing different sides. That like we're cheering for the Imperials technically at this point, and the rebels on this planet are who we want to lose, and we're seeing this like really awkward battle sequence because Mando doesn't have his Mando armor. He's having to fight with normal armor that's breakable. He doesn't have his weapons. The one thing I don't like about this dynamic is that the pirates don't obviously have a connection to the village, even though
Yeah.
everyone that we've seen that's not Imperial on this planet is native to this planet.
But they're also all human, and these people are also aliens, so they
Yeah.
kind of look different than even
Yeah,
them.
and so like I get it, like that it's sort of the thing that happens recurringly in this show of like using these alien warriors as opposed to having these like humans that are in these like soft robes or whatever in villages. And I think because the way I've consumed so many different things in Star Wars that like I'm already thinking of like the background of these things and I'm connecting them to the village.
Mhm.
And in my head they're all one and the same. And there's the people of the Empire, and then there's some people that are fighting back, and other people that are just trying to get on with their lives. I don't think they should have differentiated them as human and then alien. I think that the village should have been mixed with humans and aliens, and that the differentiation you need to make is that one group has armor and weapons, and they're fighting back, and then one group is just living peacefully, farming or whatever. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's dumb that they keep having to put these, or like they're choosing to put these aliens in the fighting roles, and like expecting the audience not to be able to empathize with an alien face. We've already had Frog Lady. We empathize with them because the way you dress them, the way they're performed, just the way that's visually, it doesn't have to be something monstrous. The performance
Yeah.
and the costume design or the special effects, like you can manipulate that into something that we automatically sympathize with. And you can also you can make a human look intimidating and fierce too.
Yeah, I also think that this is another problem with it is that this is exactly how we saw Tuscans until
Mm-hmm.
Mando. Until Mando, we saw Tuscans as people who were just out to, fight things. But we then realized, or we're then like brought into perspective, like, nah, people invaded their home.
Yeah.
They're just trying to take their home back, which is exactly what these people are trying to do. So it's hard after we've been taught in 2 separate episodes this season to sympathize with people whose home got taken from them. And now we're killing them and we're told that it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very different. I think it makes sense for the episode. I'm not saying that. I just think it's a little weird and strange that, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, that they use aliens instead of humans, because I think we'd
Yeah.
have the same reaction either way.
But like even like the violence in the scene, like one gets run over by the wheels.
Yeah, actually
Like
2, I think.
like one like bounces off, and one just like you can hear the cracks, and like
Yep.
you even see Mayfeld's reaction.
Yep.
And it feels like they use the makeup and prosthetics and like making them aliens to skirt aside from the complexity that would be felt if of just seeing Mando and Mayfeld react to the fact that they're killing these rebels who are basically on the right side.
Yeah.
Well, Mayfeld isn't necessarily well, she seems from both perspectives. I don't think he really would care either way. But
Yeah.
then again, he kind of hates the cruelty of the Empire.
Yeah.
But either way, just the fact that they're participating in it and they don't have to be, like, you could really have dealt with the fact that, like, especially with Mando on top of the Juggernaut, to see some restraint that he's kind of portraying that, but he's not, because we're not really letting the pirates be characters that are interacting with him. They're just more obstacles. It's a missed opportunity. And I'm not saying that like I'm not saying that I would all of a sudden care about them dying if they were humans. I'm not saying you have to reverse it because
Yeah.
I cared about them dying the way they were.
Hmm.
I think it would have made more sense to where like that there would be some visual cues of the villagers basically being the one in the same group as those pirates, like have the same colors, sort of like with Sanctuary, that episode where like they're all wearing
Yeah.
the same fabrics.
Hmm.
Have that sort of thing, except the pirates are wearing armor.
Yeah. Overall, I do love the fight scene though. I think it's very well
Oh yeah,
choreographed and it's brutal, man. Like you see the fear in one's eyes when the detonator explodes and
yeah,
then he gets just engulfed in flame. Like
yeah.
it's brutal, but it's really good. And the hand to hand stuff,
Mhm.
the stunt guys in the show amaze me every week
Yeah.
with how well they can do.
There
So
there was one shot that reminded me of of Solo concept art of them jumping off the hovercraft onto the train
yeah.
of the Juggernaut. It's I think like, they took some of the inspiration from that train heist in Solo.
Hmm.
Again, another example of them recycling images.
Yeah.
There's some other points. So in Rick Famuyiwa's we didn't even mention Rick Famuyiwa wrote and directed this episode. He's my favorite filmmaker in the show.
Yeah.
He in chapter 2, what was it called, The Child?
Yes, it was called the child.
When Mando is sort of accepting his death to the Mudhorn, there's a shot of his face and him like holding out the knife, and him just sort of accepting whatever's
Yeah, he's
coming
like
towards him.
really shaking too.
Yeah, and then there's a shot in this episode in his troop transport armor that's sort of framed similarly, and
Yeah.
he's just got his fists, and he's like, he's stripped of. It's not the same. He's not facing the same kind of threat. He's
Well, I
not.
mean, he has 3 hovercrafts of dudes coming at him with
Yeah.
thermal detonators. So,
Like, it doesn't seem as obvious that he's going to die, but I mean, he could have died, and he was sort of coming at it in the same way. And it's interesting to see those visual things connect from Famuyiwa's
yeah. And then
work.
you've never been more happy to see TIE fighters in your life.
Yeah,
For the first time, you're glad to hear that terrible sound of a TIE fighter.
yeah.
Um,
And that's another. When we were FaceTiming during this episode, I was saying that like this feels uncomfy.
yeah,
Like
it does.
the way that we've seen so many examples of in Star Wars shows, especially in Rebels or in A New Hope, of dressing up like the Imperials.
Yeah.
But normally they eventually like they do what they have to do secretly, and then they're just fighting.
Yeah,
with the
because most of the
Imperials.
time, if we use Rebels, Ezra does something stupid and gets caught
Yeah,
or something like, or yeah. Well, in this case, it's different though because Ezra and Sabine, who are normally the people who are sneaking in and dressing up as Imperials in Rebels, are very famous, and so they have very recognizable faces. And so that doesn't help them. So if they ever have to take their helmet off for any reason, they get noticed. Whereas Mando and Mayfeld are not memorable. And so I think it's easier for them to sneak in places because even if they do take off their mask, no one's going to know who they are, because, well, first off, no one's seen Mando's face before.
yeah.
And after this, only one person has ever seen his face.
There's Valen Hess, and then there's the trooper he shoots, or the trooper Mayfeld.
No, I'm
shoots.
saying only one living person has ever seen his face.
That's why I forgot they're dead.
Because Mayfeld killed everyone and then said, "I never saw your face," and then hands him the thing.
But like, I don't think we've ever had this feeling of like being rescued by the Imperials. Of like,
oh yeah,
not only are we masquerading with them, but we're sharing a victory with them. That little like half-hearted salute that Din does was a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. Because you're like, he's like barely getting his. He's like, salute, I guess.
Is that
like,
what
yeah?
we do?
Am I supposed to salute you or what?
Yeah.
Do I salute back? Do you just salute me?
I think it's something I love about Star Wars. This like repeated motif of them of heroes dressing up as villains, and the way that we see like villainous costumes or like the trooper costumes is that like even though they keep on coming up with new varieties, it's a uniform thing. It discourages individuality it's dark. It's like it's either white or gray or black or tan.
Yeah.
Some of it's red. It all communicates fierceness and like uniformity. But and so like we're like, I guess visually we're trained to like hate that image or fear it or be repelled by the fact that it doesn't acknowledge humanity. But the second our heroes have that, it feels like a weird like reclamation of that, where it's like,
Yeah, or like the fact that in Rebels, Ezra constantly wears a scout trooper helmet, and that's like his regular. It throughout season 4 anyway. His like regular attire is a scout trooper, and so we're then acclimated to like, scout troopers aren't that bad.
yeah,
Almost.
it's like it's a bad, like we see those uniforms as reflections of really terrible views or
Yeah.
and tyranny, but we also see it benefiting our perspective characters as well. I think it's very it's one of those like weird, I don't know how to describe it, like
Yeah, it's just a weird feeling.
like I'm not trying to like be like, oh, I have these special tastes or whatever, but like there's a easily like a noticeable thing in Star Wars that like of like a lightsaber fight or a dogfight that we're like, that's a Star Wars thing, and
Yeah.
I love that about Star Wars. But this happens just as much as any other sort of thing like that, but people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like the relation of like, I mean, it's sort of like Halloween costumes, the way that
Mhm.
like we know that stormtroopers are based on Nazis, but like or
Yeah.
like Darth Vader is based on there's occult figures, I guess, or like, and just it represents the worst evil, but our kids dress up as that,
Yeah.
and it's like it's like it's subverting that, and it's like I don't think you need to like ban kids from wearing stormtrooper costumes, because it's like an acknowledgement of evil, but it's like, hey, we can, like, we have the capacity to do this, but we can also like make it look ridiculous, and we can
Mhm.
it's a disguise. It's I don't know. There's so many things that comes to mind when I think of like characters wearing those costumes.
I also thought that Mando was gonna like change in front of everybody, and I was like, you can't do that, man. Like, at least if you're gonna wear a helmet and you know there's gonna be a helmet, you change away from people so that you don't show your face. So at the beginning of the episode, I was less about him showing his face. But as soon as it's ever mentioned that he's gonna take his that he should take his helmet off, like it's huge foreshadowing that he's gonna take that helmet off. Um, and I love. I think this is no. Okay, so this is the second time in live action that we've seen someone dress up as a stormtrooper to disguise themselves. It's mostly been in the animated shows. I think the only other time was Luke and Han in episode 4.
Yeah, because I mean, Rebels is capturing that OT spirit.
Yeah.
And they're always going on little adventures, so it happens so many times. You sort of had in Clone Wars, you had a clone disguising himself as a droid in a way, where he holds up the droid head.
Oh
in the,
yeah.
in the cam.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of other examples. Did it ever happen in like Mandalorian arcs?
I don't think so. I don't think it ever happened in Mandalorian.
Obi-Wan was given a Mando's suit, but that was for just combating other jetpacks.
Yeah,
wasn't really for disguise.
Yeah, that was just...
Or was it? Did he have a Maul Mandalorian costume?
He did. Yeah, he did. When he was rescuing Satine from the prison, he dressed up as a one of the Maul guys.
Yeah,
one of Gar Saxon's boys.
There was a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith where Yoda and Obi-Wan go to the temple and they have to fight off
clones who are dressed as
Jedi. I guess that's a different thing.
Yeah, those are clones dressed as Jedis. And Obi-Wan says something like, for a clone, you make a terrible Jedi or something like that. That's his line or something.
Yeah. In Clone Wars, there was Cad Bane who disguised himself as a clone trooper, right?
I think so at one point, but that's because he loses his hat. At one point, I think.
Yeah,
that's one of the Boba arcs.
He kills Denal, clone trooper Denal.
Yeah, that's when he. That's one of the. I think that's one of the Boba arcs, isn't it?
No,
it's not.
It was one of Boba Fett or Cad Bane's first episodes, and he He gets shot briefly, like a little shot, and he bleeds green. And Anakin's like, "That's not a clone. That's no clone."
Oh yeah, I remember that now. Okay.
Rogue One, obviously another OT adjacent movie. They
Oh, you're right.
Jin and Cassian
I
dress up
forgot
as
about that.
Imperials, or even K2SO. He's mechanical, but he's reprogrammed. It's a similar thing of like
Yeah, but he's
able
always
to.
dressed like that.
I know, but he's able to blend in, and like that same sort of concept of like
Yeah.
portraying yourself as Imperial even though you're not.
All right, so never mind. I was wrong. This is not the first time, even in live action, that we've seen that. That's my bad. Yeah, I do, but I just love the. Also, when Mayfeld, you can already see that he's not the best guy whenever he's talking to Mando, and he's like, "I don't see how you people see out of these things." And by you people, I do mean Mandalorians. Such a weird line.
Yeah, I can't fully parse out that line. Is it just him being a bigot, or like I'm having trouble?
No, he literally just goes, "I can't see out of this thing," and takes off his helmet, and he's like, "I don't see how you guys could wear those things." And he said, "I don't see how you people could wear these things." And he said, "And by you people, I of course mean Mandalorians."
I feel like I think everyone understood that he meant Mandalorians when he said "you people."
Yeah, he did. They
So
did.
like I don't know why he added that part.
Because he's a douchebag.
Yeah,
Because as much as we want to like him, he's still Mayfeld.
I don't really want to like him. I don't know.
It was a really weird scene.
Let's go. Okay, so you said that he's basically right when he said to Mando that about like the size and everything, or like
Or the fact that
everything is about survival.
Yeah, as long as you can sleep at night.
I don't think that's necessarily right. Like again, we don't always have to trust what characters say as their belief.
Yeah.
But let's go into that more. Like explain what you mean further.
Well, I think that Mando is definitely in this episode embodies the fact that like you got to do what you got to do to protect what you love. You know, if that means going against something.
I think there's different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
So the way that Mando does it is that he reforms beliefs. He sees a better way. He chooses the better option because he knows it's right. He still upholds other aspects of his creed, but he's like, I know the creed says this, and to just treat it like a job. But I'm also, if you look at it from this way, the creed is also to protect innocent children.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Mayfeld, the way Mayfeld sees everything's about survival, I think the way he comes at it is that like you shouldn't care about culture, or you shouldn't care about being so dead set on a certain perspective, because he has a cynical view where he thinks that he comforts himself, he comforts his own selfishness by saying, well, this is what everybody does when we're pressed to a certain pressed to do a certain thing. We're gonna do what keeps us safe.
Yeah.
I think he has a cynical view, whereas Mando has the way that he treats rescuing Baby Yoda in the first season. It's like, it's not a preservation. It's like, I'm gonna open myself up to so much more discomfort, so much more danger, because this is right. Like it's a different sort of shifting of the views. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As much as I love talking about like all these big topics, there's a lot we haven't talked about this episode. And
I want to talk more about cynicism.
You want to talk more about cynicism?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say one thing is that I don't think we needed to, but I really like the way we see the inside of Slave One.
Oh yeah.
How
I was kind of confused. Like I was like, oh, well, I recognize the sort of technology or whatever, because like, oh, this is like 2001 The Space Odyssey.
Oh, it's just a gyroscope basically.
Yeah, like I knew what it was. I just didn't know my bearings. I didn't know what was rotating where.
Yeah.
I had like, I was like, wait, what does it look like from the outside? Where were we?
I think the ship is rotating around the center.
Yeah,
because the center stays up.
And the cockpit's always the same way, because when it's sitting, Django and Boba and Attack of the Clones were like 90-degree angle.
Yes.
But I don't know. I saw the walls rotating, and I'm like, I know it's happening, but visually I can't parse it.
It's
out.
really cool though.
Yeah.
Like I love it. Like I've always wondered, like, okay, so we know that
I didn't know there was like a quarters there. I just thought it was for cargo. I didn't know that there was like that it needed to rotate. I didn't know people would like sit there.
I mean, like, but let's think about it. If you have a bunch of people in carbonite, like they're gonna tip over if you don't, unless you like strap them to something.
Those are normally like, I think those are fastened in some way.
Probably. I think it's cool though. I really like the fact that we finally see the inside of Slave One. Is this the first time we've seen the actual cargo area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've only ever seen the cockpit. It was in like one shot.
The only thing they missed was the shot of Boba hitting his head on the door.
Yeah.
They should have kept that tradition going.
They should, because also you get the stormtrooper hitting his head in episode 4.
And they did a nod to that in Attack of the Clones by having Django do it, since he's like the genetic father to stormtroopers.
Yeah.
At least, clones that became stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Let's go into that. This is technically a third Boba Fett episode, but like second where he's a character.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about his armor, his new role?
He's repainted his armor, which I think it looks really cool. It definitely, I think it's good because he's not the same Boba as he was. He's not. I mean, he's working for the Empire now working against the Empire now, for crying out loud. He's not a bounty hunter anymore. He's changed, and I think a new paint job ultimately signifies the change that he had to go through. I really like that, even though he's in the show, it would be so easy for them to make Boba Fett like the center of this show, and he would like absolutely take over everything because he's a fan favorite. Everyone loves him. But I like that they kind of stay back and treat him like any other side character, and the fact that they don't have to use him for everything. The same with like Fennec or Cara Dune in this episode. They are backup. Like they're there if you need them, and they're there for the escape route, but they're not the main part of the episode. And I really appreciate that from loving Mando perspective and not wanting him to be overshadowed by side characters. So I think that's an easy problem that could have happened with Ahsoka Tano. It could have happened with Boba Fett. It could have happened with Bo-Katan, and I don't think it did with any of them.
They do have their moments. They get to have some scenes where they get to.
They do, but I think overall none of them overshadow too much.
Yeah, it's not like the overarching narrative, but they do. Sometimes you do get to like feel their perspective, especially with Mando or Mayfield this episode.
Yeah,
some of the close-ups that he has and the scene with Val and Hess, it really gets like a subjective sort of feel to it, where you're feeling what he's feeling, you're feeling his anger. But okay, with Fennec Shand, and the marshal that shall not be named,
okay,
like. I don't know. It made sense the way they had to be sidelined. Obviously we have the funny line of Boba saying, "Let's just say they'll recognize my face," which is
Oh yeah, I didn't I did not catch that.
Okay, Jar Jar.
Until the second viewing.
Me too.
I didn't notice that he said that because
clones.
He looks like clones.
My first thought was just like, oh, he was a bounty hunter that worked for the Empire a lot of times, like to speak. His face is recognizable.
Yeah,
but yeah, what he actually meant was his.
No, he just looks like every other clone that.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
But with Fennec, I like the shootout stuff, the snipers.
I do too.
It's just, I think she could have, like,
Ming-Na Wen could play a better role.
Like her character feels like a trickster, like in what's it called, Gunslinger, that episode. Like she was very much a trickster manipulating Toro, and then when she comes back, she's not really that role. It's like this new sort of version where she gets to be an ally, and similar to like Grief and Kara, that sort of like turn where they're like, oh, let's help the Mando. I feel like they could have hinted at that more. Like I said, I don't fully trust her to like stay with the code.
Yeah, I also think that this has nothing to do with like Fennec as a character, but I think that when I first heard that Ming-Na Wen was going to play a character, I assumed she was going to be like big, like martial arts heavy, like get some cool up close and personal fights, and we're kind of not getting that, and I kind of wish we were. because I know how well she can do personally at fight scenes. She's done it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, she constantly is doing her own fight scenes in that show. And I kind of wish we'd get a few of those in this, and I have a feeling we're probably going to get some next episode.
I mean, she kicked down a boulder last episode. What more do you want?
I want her to fight people, not just a boulder. I think if my prediction is correct, well, no, I predicted that she would be a good person, but the MMA fighter that is the lady working for Moff Gideon, the Imperial.
Katie O'Brien, the comms officer.
Yes. I think it would be cool to see her and Ming-Na Wen fight.
Sure.
And do like really cool fight scene. I think that could be really awesome. Next episode.
Yeah. And it's not that I think she's like, I don't mean it as an insult. I think she's untrustworthy.
Oh no, I completely agree.
I think, I mean, there's in a certain way, she could have been the Mayfeld role in this episode. Like, you maybe like didn't have to use Mayfeld. Like she's an untrustworthy person. And like probably has this history with the Empire. Obviously, there's like the clearance thing of like her being an assassin. She's probably assassinated Imperial officers, but like,
yeah, but with Mayfeld though, you get the different.
I feel like they're both just as jaded, you know, but they both just don't care about alliances. So
he's more of a smart aleck though.
Oh yeah, for dialogue, yes, Mayfeld definitely serves that well. And anytime we get a talk box next to Mando, it's fun.
Yeah,
but I think you, in addition to Mayfeld, at least in this episode, Fennec could have also served those thematic questions that were proposed.
I think this has the almost same feeling as when Bluefish guy was with Mando.
The Mithril
was with Mando, except the Mithril was overly nice to try to fool Mando, whereas Mayfeld is now being like a douchebag almost at the beginning. But yeah, it's very similar. Also, with back to Boba Fett for a second, I
had this thought. I'm thinking of like, why does Mayfeld care about convincing Mando of these viewpoints? And I think it's because deep down he just likes him. Like, he wants to be Mando's friend. Why else would he care so much about getting him to come to his side of the aisle, or the coming to the middle of the aisle, I guess is what you could call it.
Yeah.
It's a weird, like, 'cause he's not very open about his emotions. Obviously, you see the most emotional he gets, he deals with that by shooting a guy.
Yeah.
Like, and like Bill Burr himself is cut from the cloth of blue collar Boston guys of there's a lot of perception of masculinity that apparently is prevalent in Boston about like male friendships, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't speak firsthand, but I've heard about it from other people there. And so he has that sort of like indirect way of expressing, I guess, his affection, I guess, or his appreciation for Mando. And I think I don't know, I'm reading into it, but like,
yeah,
but seeing, I don't know, it's not directly addressed in the show, but I feel like there's so many characters in the show that like deeply like Mando.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, I'm not
I think Pelimoto's one of them.
Yeah. Like, I'm not a fan artist, but I see a lot of fan art that like, a lot of fan art like likes to use characters in these shows and like puts them in domestic friendly situations.
Yeah. Getting ice cream.
Yeah, like that sort of stuff. I love that about fan art, the way it's just like,
it doesn't matter. You can take them out of Star Wars and you still get it.
Like, some of it's romantic. It doesn't have to be romantic, but like, I'm thinking about Hux and Chewbacca. That's one of the more weird ones.
What the heck
happens? But like,
I've not heard about that one.
Or like Hux and Kylo. Like, there's a lot of like,
Hux hates Kylo.
But that's the thing. It's an enemies to friends or enemies to lovers sort of thing.
Okay.
And that, like, using because like even like fierce arguments like that like are cute in a way.
Mm-hmm. Would you call that Huxla?
Yeah, Huxla.
Or Kikes?
No, I wouldn't go with that. It sounds like a slur, but it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just realizing that I'm applying some of that sort of attitude about Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's what I have the most fun with Star Wars.
You're just talking about weird crap?
No, just like when I can really read into character dynamics. It's something I didn't get last week with the tragedy. That's sort of like interesting conversation, interesting like way of contextualizing a relationship, like a way of like seeing what's on the screen in a Star Wars way, but then like, wait, this is like these people on Earth, you know, like this is what their relationship would be like if they were on Earth, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I see Matt Mayfeld as that like guy who like wants to be cool around Mando, but he knows that Mando hates him, so he wants to like play up this like reputation of like a guy who like knows what it's all about and like this is why you're wrong and like shut up about the creed. What do you know about creeds? Please give me a fist bump after I shoot this guy.
Yeah. So what do you think about the seismic blast at the end? Did you like fanboy over like I did?
I knew what was coming. I'm an AOTC stan. I love the asteroid sequence in Attack of the Clones. I mean, you can't really be satisfied by it, especially because visually it's not as compelling as the asteroid sequence.
Yeah, it's not nearly as cool sounding.
Yeah. But like it's one of those things where you have to pump your fist that it happened.
Yeah.
But like ultimately it's the original that's gonna be what
I
really
saw
does it for
a
you.
TikTok that played all three of them at the same time. And so you got to hear like the sound but amplified by 3.
Yeah, because there's 2 in episode 2.
There was 2 in episode 2. They sent 2 of them toward Obi-Wan. And then the one in this episode. So yeah.
There was also a different level of fun in Attack of the Clones because you see little Boba reacting to everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You got him!" Like, but then we won't be seeing him again. Like, there's a George Lucas level of like quirkiness that was afforded in that version, whereas this is like, I mean, as much as we applaud a lot of the Star Wars things in the show, it was treated as like, oh, this is a cool thing. Like, this is cool,
and it was cool.
It was. It just like
we've never actually seen it take out a ship before, so it was cool.
Sometimes I miss the dichotomy of George Lucas creative decisions where it's like it's equally cool and inventive, but also weird and got a weird sense of silliness and humor to it. Like it didn't really have that.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see. We've already talked about the end of the episode with Avery when it comes to the final, the big hologram speech to Moff Gideon. Do you just want to go ahead and like predict next episode? I want to do a good segment about predictions. I want to get our final, because we've predicted the whole season about how it's going to end, but I want to get our final predictions in so that if we're right, we can say we were right.
We don't have any like fan fixes because we're basically satisfied with this show. The only fix we had was the pirates. It's weird. The last two weeks we've had things that like, or at least I've had like things that are like, this is how I would do it.
Yeah. You also did it with Ahsoka.
It's last 2 weeks, right?
No, it was last 3 weeks because you did it last week too with the Boba episode.
I know, last 2 weeks.
Last week was Boba, week before was Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
Are you including this episode as one too?
No, that's technically this week, even though we're recording on a Tuesday.
Okay. Then yeah, last 2 weeks.
Anyway, predictions. Let's just jump into it.
We'll do the biggest. Well, okay. One that you told to me, the George Lucas theory is technically still alive.
Because we don't have Jon Favreau confirmed for coming back to another
exactly.
episode.
I'd given up on it because I assumed that Jon Favreau. We both assumed Jon Favreau was gonna. If it happened, Favreau does one, Lucas does one. But then Rick Famuyiwa did this one.
Yeah, because we didn't know Famuyiwa was returning.
No,
because he's directing Cassian.
Yes, so we didn't know that he was supposed to be doing an episode. He was never listed on any directors' lists
this season. Yeah.
So
thoroughly happy he returned.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even though initially it made me think that my Lucas theory was destroyed.
It kind of made me sad at first.
Yeah, I was still like, yeah, that's my favorite Mando director. Let him do what he wants.
Yeah, it kind of made me sad at first, but I was like, nah, I like Rick Famuyiwa. Let him do it.
Oh wait,
but
sorry, I know we just started predictions, but another thing that I like about Famuyiwa is that they discussed this in the Disney Gallery that he like loves to deal with misfits and dealing with the Jawas. And just sort of how Mando, even though he was with the bounty hunters in the prisoner episode, he was a misfit and he was just like fish out of water, even though he was returning to the water he used to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, we talked about the costumes, how it's like they're the odd men out, like they're Imperials, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
and how Mando has a similar fight sequence to the Jawa Sandcrawler.
Yeah.
On the Juggernaut, and like he has to deal with the Jawas. There's just so many he couldn't fight back, and this one there's also a lot of fight back, but he doesn't.
He also has the high ground this time.
Wasn't the hovercraft like above the Juggernaut?
Whatever, they have to come to him though, so therefore
Yeah.
he has the high ground.
Oh, we also the dynamic of them having to stay slow. Oh, we didn't even talk about the explosives.
It was pretty awesome.
Like the fact that like if they go fast, it's gonna just explode and go everywhere. Like that's. I was gonna come up with like a metaphor that could mean that I don't even care anymore about explaining that.
No, it's just cool.
It's just cool the fact that they can't go fast to escape. They have to stay slow and let the pirates come to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that like Mando's like not in his normal element combat wise.
Yeah.
I love that Famuyiwa is like bringing that sort of like, you know, because you know how like talk about like Bryce Dallas Howard is like with actors and like using like very clearly like communicating the motivations. I think Famuyiwa is very good with like characterized action and like using punches or using like looks towards the threat that like really communicates the struggle that they're going through. I love Rick Famuyiwa. I love all of it. Like literally chapter 2, The Child, chapter 6, The Prisoner, and chapter, is it 15?
Yes.
15, The Believer. They're probably like top 4 or 5 of the whole show.
Yeah, I think so as well. But as you said this week, the theory for George Lucas may not be dead because Jon Favreau on IMDb, is IMDb that you found this?
Mm-hmm.
Is only listed for 1 episode.
Which they've been hiding listings for directors technically. So technically, maybe they're gonna add another episode to his page. Like that's possible.
Yeah, they could do that.
But from what we know right now, thinking that nothing's gonna change in that way, knowing that it would be a fan thing that they would do to have George Lucas direct. Also,
it'd be a cool thing, not just a fan thing, but
yeah, it's a cool thing that they would do that like. It would definitely, I think it would definitely paint a different like reaction for the show. Like if it's a bad finale, I don't know if it's a bad finale, but like they're gonna get more hype in the week following the episode if George Lucas directs it.
I also think that it will help them though because he knows how to make a cliffhanger in the middle of a trilogy.
He didn't direct Empire Strikes Back.
I know, but he wrote it.
And so did Lawrence Kasdan and Lee Brackett.
Yeah. But are either of them a part of the show? No.
But whenever we say a director knows how to do something, sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're just associating them with a story thing.
Yeah.
That's not, and like just because they did it one thing and one story doesn't mean they're going to do it in another thing.
Yeah.
Sort of like how with Taika Waititi, where he's like, oh, he's going to make Mandalorian super funny. He didn't really do that, aside from letting stormtroopers do their thing and punching Grogu.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, George Lucas, like, he's been supervising, I guess, the set is what you could call it. I don't know. I think he has such a strong sense of so many of these characters because he helped. So many of these ideas are generating from things that he came up with.
Yeah. Well, tell me this: are you gonna, when the episode comes out, are you gonna go to the credits at the before you watch the episode and see if George Lucas directed it, or are you gonna wait till the end to see if he directed it?
I'm gonna wait for the end. I'm gonna look for cues. I'm gonna try to see if like, oh, that's a George Lucas thing.
Well, I think it'll be harder than you think because I think Jon Favreau is very much trying to not completely copy, but in Jon Favreau's episodes, they have this.
How many has he directed? He only directed chapter 9, right? Dave Filoni did 5 and 1.
Didn't he do? Oh, it was 1 that Filoni did.
Didn't he? No, it was Favreau.
It was Favreau. Right. Favreau did number 1, and then he also did number 9.
Well, he's also executive producer, and so editing is gonna be George Lucas because it's Star Wars. That's the overall plan. Yeah. I mean, on a minuscule level, like if there's an aspect ratio change, I might be inclined to think it's Favreau.
Yeah.
Like doing that for the first chapter of this season it's possible they're going to do that again, even though they're probably not going to be fighting a monster. Like,
I mean, they
I'm-
are. I mean, Moff Gideon's a monster in his
Yeah.
own way.
but they might not necessarily need the scope, but like he might just do it because he can.
Yeah.
It's the final episode. I'm thinking it could be 60 minutes long, possibly.
I've heard that it is supposed to be an hour long.
Yeah. And so that might justify doing a higher aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Then again, George Lucas could be doing that too.
Yeah.
But like,
Either way,
just because Favreau has proven to introduce that himself, and he's known for big scale, I guess.
Mhm.
Like that, I'm trying to think of like other things that could happen within the first viewing. That's like, this might be it might be the death of the Lucas theory, or oh, this is a weird Lucas thing that just got introduced.
Well, I think either way, the Lucas theory is still alive, and either way, I'm going to look forward to the episode.
Yeah,
Because even if it's Favreau, I will be excited that it's a new episode. The second biggest controversy that we've had since the Ahsoka episode is: are we getting a Jedi? If so, who? I will say I think if they were going to do a Jedi, it would have come in this episode. Because I think that introducing a Jedi could be risky for, like I said, overshadowing could be risky in a finale. You don't want to overshadow your main character in a finale. It's okay to do it in like any other episode, I feel like. I mean, not okay, but more accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if they were gonna introduce a Jedi, they would do it in this episode and then maybe have them do something in the finale. But I don't think they'll introduce
I don't know.
a Jedi in the finale.
That's another example of us like comparing this season structure to season 1, because we had an expectation for how like the types of episodes that we would get.
Yeah.
In terms of like first 3 and then next 3 and then next 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because like chapter 14, the tragedy, that functions more like chapter 7 from first season. And it's like flipped in a lot of other episodes are also flipped, where it feels like it's not a one-to-one thing in terms of how it drives the story forward, and how much of a side fun thing it is.
Yeah.
So like, if we're going off of the format of season 1, if there was a Jedi introduced in that, we would think it'd be in chapter 7 because that's a 2-part finale.
Yeah.
Whereas like chapter 14 this season starts the finale, and then we go off on a side thing to get us back to the end of the finale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that makes sense.
But okay, and now that we've like really zeroed in on Mando just like coming after Moff Gideon, I feel so grounded, like so much more grounded in that struggle. And I guess because I'm not thinking about the Force stuff anymore, that like I think they might keep it just with him and Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
And it would be weird to like interrupt that by a Deus Ex Jedi.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well.
But I don't know. Last week I was feeling pretty cynical and jaded, and so that's when I was like, because like that was a not fan film, but like that was a fan-centric episode where they were doing a lot of spectacle for people who like to see the canon stuff come back, or the legend stuff come back. And so that the fact that they did that in that episode made me think, you know what, they're just gonna go full balls to the wall. They're gonna give us Luke. That's what they're gonna do.
So
because this episode was more grounded in what I think the show should be, and Famiua was so integral to creating what the show is in season 1 that he sort of had that same sensibility in this episode.
Yeah.
If this would have been super Boba Fett centric, or if this would have been super legendsy, anything like that, I'd be more inclined to think, oh, they're just gonna do Luke and they're just going full on connections.
So neither of us think that there's gonna be a Jedi, but if there was a Jedi, you think it would be Luke? I think it'd be the easiest to ride around.
I don't know.
I would think it would be Luke. It's the like I said last week, it's the one that we know the least about what he's doing at this point in time.
I want the only preview I want to know about this next episode is a location. That would help me so much.
Probably
That would
Moff Gideon
help-
Star Destroyer for the most part.
That would help my prediction so much because I'm picturing them infiltrating the Star Destroyer and them taking different jobs or whatever, doing.
But you
different
can't do that for an
things.
hour.
That's what I mean. Like they've got to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picturing Katie O'Brien's comms officer to like protect Moff Gideon in some way and get in a fight, you know,
Yeah.
to show her physicality, even though she's a comms officer. I saw her full title today and I was like, maybe she's not like a military like combat person. Obviously she has that uniform, but comms officer makes her feel very white collar. Like she just like receives phone calls and like relays them to Moff Gideon. But I'm still fully confident they're going to use her in a fight scene because of the actress. So I'm picturing a confrontation of her and Fennec or someone.
Mm-hmm. Or even her and Bo-Katan. I think it'd be cool to see her fight.
Bo-Katan is coming back.
Oh yeah,
like definitely. It would even be interesting conflict wise if like the Night Owls run into Team Mando. Let's call them Team Mando. It's like Team Avatar.
Yeah.
Team Mando runs into Team Night Owls. And like Night Owls are doing their own little mission.
Yeah, they're doing. She's trying to get the dark saber.
Yeah, she's going for the dark saber. She wants to sack Moff Gideon. That's a British term. I'm not trying. It's not a sexual. It's like.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Okay. Or it's a football term, I guess.
Yeah. It is. She just wants to tackle him behind the line of scrimmage.
And it's like, oh, it's you. Can you help me out? I need you to do this thing or whatever.
Are you gonna kill me in the process? Absolutely.
And I mean, for your, since you want Fennec to do hand-to-hand combat, and since that's why you get Ming-Na Wen, it's possible that it's going to be her and the comms officer. I hope they give her a name. Like sometimes they withhold information until it comes out,
Yeah.
So like because I'm picturing so many. I've already got a comic in my head about her backstory or whatever. Not literally,
Nice.
but like there's so much strength in her performance that I'm just seeing so many possibilities, and it would be cool to be like for her to give her name or whatever. We talked about Mando getting stabbed with the spear.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely going to be him fighting Moff Gideon with like Darksaber versus spear.
Yeah, there's also, we talked about Baby Yoda getting to choose whether he wants to be trained by a Jedi or whether he wants to be trained by Mando. I think that'll be a thing that happens probably.
I don't know. There's some people that say that the bad ending could be that Mando reunites with Grogu, but he's captured. So it's like he gets back with them, but he's not free. And so then the third season is Team Mando teaming up and assembling to come get him. And that would be cool because what if they like go for everyone he knows? Like what if Grief comes back? What if Mara comes back? Who else? The Mon Calamari ship repairman. I'm just kidding. Cobb Vanth, that's a big one.
Do you think Cobb Vanth will come back this episode?
Not this episode.
I don't think so either.
Another thing that just popped in my head about Bo-Katan's return is that if she's returning and she knows Ahsoka, like she could have contacted Ahsoka. She knows that Ahsoka's on that planet. I forget the planet's name.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I feel like they're relatively Corvus. I feel like they're relatively frequently in contact. Or so like either Bo-Katan was like, hey, did you meet a Mandalorian recently? Or Ahsoka was like, hey, do you know this Mandalorian? So that gives more likelihood of Ahsoka being the Jedi to return.
Yeah.
And it makes the fact that I'm fully confident Bo-Katan's coming back.
Yeah.
And I feel like Bo-Katan would want Ahsoka there.
I don't think Ahsoka would come back strictly.
I think Ahsoka can come back, but I don't think she's the Jedi that answers the call. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
It makes sense for her to be there, but it does not make sense for her to be the answer to the Force time that Grogu does.
Yeah, I don't think Ahsoka will come back strictly because I think the only reason she was here was one, fan service, and two, so that she could hint at her new series.
Yeah, the backdoor pilot.
Yeah. I think also the rumor is that that's why Cobb Vanth was here, is because he's going to be part of like the Rangers of the New Republic series. there was a rumor going around about that. He was going to get recruited by people and be in the Rangers of the New Republic.
Interesting. And I think that's what a lot of this episode was. And I had a slightly negative reaction to some of the stuff in this episode initially because of the Kara stuff, because of the Mayfeld stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the Rangers of the Republic news, I was like, this is just setting all that up.
Yeah.
And I'm not, both because of a Gina Carano situation and because of my preference for everything being its own original thing. I don't want a spinoff from a spinoff from a spinoff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just on principle not on board with that show. And so the little things in this episode of Mayfeld being set free and like leaving it open-ended.
Yeah.
Like the way that was that initially I had a cynical view of that, of like, this is just there for future stuff. But at the same time, all those thoughts I was having about that planet, about the natives, about the pirates and the villagers, the fact that they could flesh that out later, and the fact that he's on that planet now. And I have this whole, I told you when I was watching it on FaceTime, that like I'm picturing him helping them.
Yeah.
And like, because it's like a, similar to how Omera served as like a domestic, like different perspective for Mando, like those villagers could offer him a different, more heartwarming, I guess, look at life.
Yeah.
So he's not just this like jaded soldier that has all his friends die, you know?
Yeah, I think so as well.
Like in that way, I'm excited for Rangers of the New Republic because I am interested in that planet's history.
Yeah.
And with his journey.
So the last big thing I want to predict is whether we think that Grogu's going to go free at the end of the season, whether we think that Mando's going to get him, and like if we think Moff Gideon will be defeated. Like that whole thing. So I'll say I think that Grogu will be. I don't think Grogu will be saved. I think that'll be the big cliffhanger, and I think Moff Gideon will be defeated, but then we'll see that there is a bigger threat.
I don't want that.
You don't want that?
No. That's a Snoke situation.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll get you know how like Count Dooku has Obi-Wan and Force binders, and he's like, let me tell you something about the Jedi. It's like in regards to like all the sci-fi technology stuff that we're not aware of in terms of Moff Gideon's intentions. Do you think he'll give some sort of speech like that to Mando?
Oh, probably. He'll probably like. I have a feeling that he's gonna do what we don't want him to do, and he's gonna like just blatantly like say what he's trying to do with Baby Yoda. Even though we already get the point, I think for the people who don't get it, he's probably gonna spill the beans.
I think everyone gets the point. They just don't know the semantics or the little things that he's planning.
Yeah, so I think he'll.
This is like, theoretically, this is like the next phase after Operation Cinder. You know, it's like they burned a lot of stuff down in Operation Cinder, which we didn't even talk about that connection with Mayfeld. But the fact that they like they destroyed what they could when they lost. They regrouped in little pockets in the Outer Rim, and they're establishing strongholds, or they're continuing strongholds where they have resources, and they're exploiting little planets, and building up capital, I guess, to be able to have this new phase in terms of force powers. And that's the missing piece, is like we don't know why they want force powers. Does Moff Gideon want to infuse blood into himself? Does he want to make Snoke? Does he want to resurrect Palpatine? It would be interesting if he's like, well, never mind. They actually did resurrect Palpatine. You know, because like I was still in that mode of like Palpatine's dead and that he never comes back. I was legitimately still thinking, oh, well, then that could be a closed-ended thing where like he tries to resurrect Palpatine, and obviously that doesn't happen, so he fails, and that's the happy ending in season 3. Wait a second, Palpatine comes back.
You're like, wait a minute.
And that's what the Snoke clones were for.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So Do you think Baby Yoda will be rescued? Last big prediction.
No, but he'll be reunited.
Okay, cool.
And Mando will take off his helmet for him, and he'll get that.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe Grogu will say his first word is Din. Like maybe it'll be like he'll say Grogu. Oh, that's how like maybe he's in disguise. He doesn't have his Mando outfit. Or just like he comes into the room and he first says Grogu. And either way, him saying Grogu is how Grogu is like, that's him, even though he doesn't have his helmet on.
Yeah.
And then maybe he teaches him his name. Maybe he's like, you Grogu, I Din. And he goes, Din.
Yeah, that would be cool. I like that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think this has been a good episode. We got some good thoughts of the episode in. We got some good predictions for next week. I think we're both very excited for the season finale. I think I'm more excited for this season finale than I was for last season's season finale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, last season finale happened. Was that before Rise of Skywalker or after?
Before.
So we were excited about other things then.
Yeah.
This is all we have now.
We were excited about other things that we shouldn't have been excited for. Yeah. Looking back, we feel stupid. The fact that Rise of Skywalker inadvertently got me back into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because leading up to that was when I went on my Star Wars high and like dropped Marvel. It's kind of sad, but it's fine. Is that it? I think so. There's a lot to talk about this episode, but I think we got it. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say if we can't think of it off the top of our head, we've kind of done everything. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian. If you want to go check us out on Instagram, I am spncr.c on Instagram. Christian is Mission Kriller. If you want to go follow the podcast on either Instagram or Twitter, it's just Last Star Wars Pod. On there, you can also follow our Facebook page, the Last Star Wars Podcast. If you guys have any predictions or any reactions or anything you want to say at all to us, you can email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. We will read all of those emails on the air. Anything else? Oh yeah, if you guys like the YouTube channel, go over there, give that a subscribe. Let your friends know about the podcast so that we can get some more viewers and get our voice out there some more. We're also in the process of trying to maybe get some t-shirts made for you guys that we know personally. If you guys would be into that, just like let us know if you have our phone numbers, or email us in if you would like to buy a t-shirt. They're just gonna have our logo on the front, and they'll say there will be no more on the back. So let us know. We're gonna try to get those done during Christmas, right after Christmas, if we get enough pre-orders. So thank you guys again for listening to this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian. We will see you guys next week.
I want to leave you guys with a Ryan Johnson quote. He just tweeted it 19 minutes ago.
Really?
I've said it before and I ain't done saying it. Star Wars fans are the best. Thanks for sharing all the kind thoughts today. Can't believe it's been 3 years. Love you guys. Yeah, people have been talking about Last Jedi because it's the 3 year.
Today's the 3 year anniversary of Last Jedi.
Yeah. God, I love Ryan Johnson.
I love Ryan Johnson too. And we love you, all of our loyal listeners. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian, and we'll see you next week.